I said my next video was going to be me actually making something, and I meant it. Hi, welcome back to my channel. I'm Jana June, and I like to make stuff. Today I'm going to be showing you my process of making yet another reversible dress. This one is McCall's 8358, and it's actually designed to be reversible this time. It's a 1970s vintage reproduction pattern by Laura Ashley, and it's a wrap dress that can either be worn forwards or backwards to be a sweetheart or square neckline. I'm planning to make the version without the ruffle at the bottom because the version with the ruffle takes way too much fabric, like 7 yards worth. I'm using a pink and black floral rayon fabric and making a size 14, even though looking at the size chart, I could be anywhere between a 12 and a 20, depending on which measurement you look at. Okay, without further ado, let's get started. Okay, this piece is massive. I decided to fold my fabric over this way because my print isn't directional, so it's okay, and it'll be easier to cut this out once. It's huge, y'all. So be aware, even my pretty big cutting table is not quite big enough for how large this piece is. You can see here how I have the pattern piece pinned to the fabric, but I'm also using the pattern weights. I use the pins to help me line everything back up when I have to shift my pieces to be on top of my cutting mats. This room is a mess, but I'm going to show you where I'm at. Did quite a bit of stitching off camera, and this thing is massive, so it's kind of hard to explain and show it to you. So what I'm going to do is use some images on the screen. So first I serged the edges that I knew were going to be visible, which would be the long end of piece number 1, both sides of piece number 2, that on the side that's going to be attached to a 1, both sides of number 3, and then only one side of the other number 2 piece, because that one doesn't have a 1 attached to it. I sewed all of the pieces together, leaving a very small opening. Where is it? It's on here somewhere. Leaving a small opening on the seam that will be under, it would be your right arm if you're wrapping the dress in front. I know it's very confusing because the dress can be worn both ways, but there's a small opening here where the tie will end up being able to go through. And then I also serged the open seam for the sleeve. And then I sewed all of those pieces together, and then I went ahead and did a double turn hem on both of the edges. And now I pretty much need to put the bias tape all along the top of the dress, all across the sleeve pieces, and then I need to hem all across the top, hem all across the bottom, then it'll mostly be done. Woo! Right now I'm going to work on the sleeve, so I'm going to fold the fabric up to the amount on the fold line, which is 1.25 inches. I should have done this when the sleeves were not attached, just so there was less fabric to deal with, but I didn't. So what I'm going to do is turn this out. So I'm going to press this up 1.25 inches, and then I will turn this in 1/4 inch. I'm going to sew all the way around, leaving an opening at the end. And then at the 1/2 inch mark, right in the middle, I'm going to stitch all the way around. That's going to make this flat and be a little ruffle. And then I'll have the opening here to put the elastic in. Here I'm prepping to hem the entire top edge of the dress. I'm doing a double turn hem that's about 1/4 inch wide. I pressed and pinned this down as I went, and this took absolutely forever. Remember that just a hem can be one of the longest parts of the process. Now I'm going to add the bias tape all along the top. I set my seam gauge, turned in the short edge of the bias tape, and pinned this along the entire top edge. I then had to stitch down the bias tape twice along both long edges. I left the short edge open to feed the elastic through. I used a bodkin to thread my 1/4 inch elastic through, and this is where I ran into a few issues. The length was simply too long, so eventually the elastic slipped out of the bodkin. I started again, this time after sewing the edge of the elastic to secure the loop. But this elastic was too loosely knit and started to rip and came out again. Finally, I got out a stiffer elastic and repeated the process for a third time. Once it was through, I stitched the short edges closed and snipped off the remaining elastic. In order to make the ties, you just turn the long rectangular pattern piece right sides together and stitch it down, leaving a small section in the center open. I used a loop turner to turn it right side out on both sides. And then I did a simple slip stitch by hand to close the opening. I'm doing a try on here to make sure the elastic is taut enough and check the length. I love how it feels along the neckline, and it's really comfortable to wear off the shoulder too. I do have an issue happening with the hem. I notice that the corner is dropping down below the hem of the rest of the dress. I know I'd have to do something to make this visually look even, and I'm not even sure how this happened. Maybe because of how the rayon drapes, or maybe it stretched too much along the bias. I was also looking to see if I liked where the hem hit on me. It feels kind of incomplete, so I did a poll on Instagram to see if I should add a ruffle to the bottom, and the majority said yes. Since I didn't buy enough fabric for the ruffle version of the dress, what I had to do was cut a 10-inch width rectangle out of my remaining fabric, which wasn't going to be enough. I also cut 10 inches off the bottom of the skirt following the curve of the hem, and I attached the piece that I cut off with the rectangle pieces that I added from my extra fabric. I tried it on again before adding the ruffle and saw that the hem was still making that point underneath, so I pinned that area out and just cut it off at that corner. Literally have about 2 hours to finish this dress. I was gonna do a decorative like hot pink, but I just don't think it looks quite right. So I'm going to do all black, do serged edge on both the top and bottom of my ruffle, and then gather it and add it to the bottom so I can wear it. I serged the top and bottom of the ruffle piece and then set up my gathering foot on my sewing machine. I had to kind of pull it a bit as I stitched so the gather wouldn't be too tight, because I only had about 1.5 times the length of my hem for this ruffle, and I had to make it work. I then pinned the ruffle all along the entire hem, adjusting it as I went to make sure it fit. Next, I top stitched the ruffle into place, and finally, I have a finished dress. I got it done just in time to wear to my friend's wedding. And here's some better shots of the different ways to wear it. You can kind of tell that the skirt seems to be a bit shorter on the square neck side. I'm not sure why exactly this happened. I'm assuming it's a mixture of the fabric stretching a bit on the bias and my body being bigger in the back, so it's sitting higher on me. It looks more even when I pull the top lower in the back, so I don't mind it much, but I wanted to point it out for you to be aware of. So what do you think? I'm obsessed with it. It makes me feel romantic and kind of coquettish. Which neckline do you prefer? I thought for sure it was going to be the sweetheart in front, but I think the square neck is really growing on me. Or should I say the straight across off the shoulder, because I don't really seem to wear it as a square neck on the square neck side. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe for more sewing and costuming content, and follow me over on Instagram at jana.june for sneak peeks and maybe even get to vote on some design choices. And let me know down below if you plan to make this dress. I definitely want to make it again, but I think I'm going to focus on some projects that take a little bit less fabric first. And I think that's it. I'm Jana June, and I'll see you soon.